Have you struggled to make decisions about daycare or another program that will benefit your kids? Stay tuned to learn about a mother's struggle making a daycare decision. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Allen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we're learning how to read tarot one card at a time. In today's video, we'll be using a 3-card spread to look at a daycare situation. We're hoping to answer the question, will my son be safe at daycare this summer? I will be using the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, and there is a link below. This question was posted anonymously online by a woman who I will call Isabella. Isabella explains that her daycare provider watches more than the legal number of children over the summer, and she's already experienced one incident because the daycare provider was watching too many children. Her question is, will my son be safe at daycare this summer? Isabella is very anxious about whether her son will be safe and pulled 3 cards. Isabella did not say that she used a spread, but I will be using a 3-card spread called the Hope, Fear, and Outcome spread. The first card represents Isabella's hopes or aspirations regarding her child's daycare. Isabella drew the Queen of Pentacles. The second card represents Isabella's fears or anxieties regarding her child's daycare. Isabella drew the Knight of Wands. And the third card represents the outcome or results of the daycare situation, taking into consideration both Isabella's hopes and her fears, and Isabella drew the Tower. My first impression was that anything that ends with the Tower is not a good outcome, especially when the reading is about children and we see a young couple plunging to their death. I definitely see a progression in terms of the color of the sky and the amount of foliage. In the Queen of Pentacles, we have a woman sitting in a lush garden under sunny skies that has almost a surreal quality. In the Knight of Wands, we have a clear blue sky, but the terrain is a very stark desert. The final card happens during nightfall, and it's in a very inhospitable environment at the top of a rocky mountain. Before I get started, I want to say that, personally, I have a lot of sympathy for Isabella. It's not easy to find good daycare, and it's a complicated relationship. At least it was for me. This person is taking care of your child, and you don't want to annoy them and have them take it out on your kid. When you find someone who is good and reliable, you don't want to give that up because you logically know that there is no perfect situation. I remember when my babysitter's daughter went through a biting phase and my son would come home covered in bite marks. I was not happy and neither was she, but it was an otherwise good situation and I sucked it up. So I completely understand that Isabella is in a bind. All right, let's get started looking at the cards. The first card represents Isabella's hopes or aspirations regarding her child's daycare. Isabella drew the Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles is the most nurturing of the court cards and appears when you are dealing with the practical parts of life, such as working and finding daycare. The Queen of Pentacles is someone who is warm and nurturing, as well as hardworking and extremely dependable. She would treat children with love and compassion and do everything possible to help them thrive. She would be the perfect person to take care of your child, essentially the tarot version of Mary Poppins or Mrs. Doubtfire. Isabella's child is the most precious thing to her. I'm sure Isabella could picture her child sitting on the Queen's lap, right where the pentacle is, and being gazed at with love and adoration. The outdoor garden would be perfect for the children to play, and there's even a bunny. It's an idyllic scene and would definitely check all the boxes for anyone looking for daycare. The second card represents Isabella's fears or anxieties regarding her child's daycare, and Isabella drew the Knight of Wands. I always consider knights to be the frat boys of the deck. They have a ton of fun and lots of energy, and the Knight of Wands has the most energy of the 4 knights. However, they are lacking in maturity. The Knight of Wands has a lot of fire energy, and he is someone who would charge ahead without thinking of the consequences. We can see this reinforced by the feathers that look like flames on his helmet and sleeves. He's got red hair and he's riding a red horse, so he can be seen as hot-headed and dramatic. The Knight of Wands has incredible energy, confidence, and passion, but doesn't really stop to think about the consequences of what he's doing. I picture the Knight of Wands as flying off into battle but not stopping to read directions, so he might be fighting a different war than he was supposed to. These are not exactly characteristics that you want in a babysitter, where your first hope is that your child is still alive when you pick them up from work. When my kids were young, we lived in Arizona. The Arizona bark scorpion is the most venomous scorpion in North America, and I knew several people who had been stung. It was quite common to put the legs of a crib or bed into glass jars because scorpions can't climb smooth surfaces. Its sting can cause anything from severe pain and numbness to convulsions and rarely death. Since the Knight of Wands is in the desert, I can see him coming up with the brilliant idea to have the children race to see who could collect the most scorpions. It could be fun, in theory, but he's not thinking about the long-term effects of his great idea. So Isabella's fears are that the daycare provider can be hot-headed and make poor decisions because she rushes into things without thinking through the consequences. I think those are legitimate fears, and having more than the legal number of children in her care is an example of poor decision-making. You've made it this far in the video, and I wanted to stop and ask for a favor if you're not already a subscriber, and that is to please hit the subscribe button. It is free for you, and it will also help me grow this channel. Plus, it means that you won't miss anything. Thanks so much, and if you're already a subscriber, I truly appreciate your ongoing support. Now let's get back to the video. The third card represents the outcome or results of the daycare situation, taking into consideration both Isabella's hopes and her fears. Isabella drew the Tower. In this card, we see a watchtower perched on a mountaintop. It has been struck by lightning and is on fire. We can already see that it was not up to fire code because we do not see any doors or fire exits, and the windows are far above ground. We can see a male and female falling from the tower. This is a card about chaos and destruction that can literally destroy you. Given that Isabella says that they've already had one incident with the daycare provider, I think that it is a reasonable conclusion that there may be more and that her child is not safe at daycare this summer, despite how much she wants things to be different. She is well aware that her daycare provider is looking after too many children. Despite the fact that Isabella wants to believe that her daycare provider is warm and nurturing and solely focused on her child, like the Queen of Pentacles, the fact is that the daycare provider is acting more like the Knight of Wands and not thinking through the consequences of watching too many kids. Sadly, it is likely that something terrible will happen and Isabella's child will not be safe. I would be surprised if Isabella didn't already know she was taking a risk when she asked this question, and I'd be even more surprised that she couldn't interpret the Tower card to be anything but a bad omen. I feel like she's stuck for daycare and is trying to convince herself that things will be okay, despite her gut feeling that her child will not be safe, which has now been confirmed by a tarot reading. As I mentioned earlier, childcare tends to be an emotional minefield, and I have great sympathy for Isabella's situation. I hope that this video gave you some ideas that you can apply to your tarot practice. Please leave a comment if you'd like to share what you've learned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.